I had just come out of the service and served in Korea, and I was in the Air Force and flying, and I wanted to be an airline pilot, and the airlines wouldn't touch me with a 10-foot pole. In those days, they had propeller-driven aircraft. There was no jets in those days, early in the 40s, 50s, 60s. Anyway, my dad decided that after about a month of me not doing anything, and he owned a hardware store, Franconia Hardware, which was right across from the Franconia Volunteer Fire Department in those days, that it was time for me to earn my keep. And he said, I want you to go to work, and come with me to the hardware store. So I became involved there at the hardware store. And at that time, Springfield was just getting developed. And they had a Springfield Chamber of Commerce there. And we were concerned about the lack of sewers and water in Lee District. Everybody had septic tanks or wells, and they felt that the board of supervisors in those days had attorneys and real estate folks on them, and they needed a businessman. The incumbent, Bill Moss, a Republican, a nice gentleman, did a very good job, decided to run for the House of Delegates from Lee District. And then at that point, I figured I didn't have to run against an incumbent, so they talked me into running for office. And I got elected, and I was there for 32 years. Well, when I first started campaigning, Lee District encompassed Lorton, and then Springfield, or I guess it was Mason District at that time. The Shirley Highway was just being built, so we stopped right there on the edge of the Shirley Highway in Lee District, went all the way down to Alexandria City Line and Route 1. The dividing line between Lee District and Mount Vernon District was Route 1, in the middle of Route 1. And I went all the way down to Lorton and almost to the Prince William County line in Occoquan. And it was very rural. And I can tell you that I remember when I was running for office, Mr. Jett, who was the former supervisor there, sometime he'd retired. He volunteered to take me around to some of the farms, and that's what we had in Lorton and in Fairfax Park in those days, and that area in Burke were farms. And I remember, stopping in one farmer's house and knocking on the door, and the guy was out in the barn candling eggs. Now, I don't know, some of the people that are going to watch this wonder what in the world is candling eggs.
Yeah, I wonder myself.
Well, they do. They have a electric light, and they put the egg on there to determine if there's something in the egg, if it's an embryo or not. If it's a good egg, it goes into the cell. If it's an embryo, it's going to get hatched, and that's what they do for candling eggs. Now you know.
Now I learned something new.
But that was my first experience. And then Fairfax County in itself, out near Reston is now, or Tyson's, all farms, large acreages. And in Lee District, though, we had a lot of gravel pits. Lehigh Concrete, it was Northern Virginia Concrete that was bought by Lehigh, maybe later, many years. And I would say that 50% of the area in Lee District had been mined for gravel and was actively being mined for gravel, which brought us into another situation where the citizens were concerned that we had no ordinances that would require the gravel pit operators to restore the pits to its original contour once they got done. In many cases, when I was first elected, they would dig up to somebody's property line 40, 50 feet deep and leave it that way. And and the citizens were getting a little bit upset about that, and so we crafted a natural resources ordinance which required the gravel companies in those days to restore the property and to be able to do a lot of things. If you take a look at some Lee, let me see. I would say that 5 or 6 developments in Lee District are built on gravel pits. Lee District Park was a big gravel pit. We bought that for a song, able to restore it. I guess Kingstown was all a gravel pit. Concern that we had with Kingstown was that if we didn't do something, it would turn up to be full of warehouses or junk yards, and it would be in the middle of the district. And it bordered on the park at this stage of the game. So we decided to do some development, and that's what we did the rezoning for Kingstown, which now I think is, I look back on it and think I did a pretty good job.
That was brilliant.
It's hard to say. We did the board in itself and did so many things over those 32 years to bring Fairfax County to where it is today. I think just the fact that we were able to plan ahead. What bothers me today when I look around and look at local elected officials and look at what's going on in the country and in the state. Politicians are only running and looking at the next position and not looking at what they're doing or using their elected office at the present time as a stepping stone for something else. And in order to plan for development and for population and for schools and for services and any kind of thing, you have to have long-range plans, and you have to have consistency, and people have to be there, and they have to develop these plans over a long period of time. And I think that was the answer to what I feel we did in Fairfax County. We had a very, I think, reasonably good board. They stayed for a while. They had the interest of the citizens primarily, and did a lot of good long-range planning. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing today. And I think that's the key. So the one thing I would say that I really would like to take some credit for is the metro system. Because I was early on able to be appointed to the Metro Board via the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission. And I served on the Metro Board for 24 years, served as chair 4 times over the 24 years, and was involved in the planning and the construction and the operation of the system as it is today. So I think I would like to say that that'd be one of the most monumental things that I think I could take some credit for. Everything else, I think, was collectively, the citizens in my district were very, very open and eager to work. And I think that over the course of my 32 years in Lee District, we only had 1 or 2 major rezoning cases where we had any long, prolonged public hearings, because most of our work was done with the Lee District Land Use Committee, which we organized. And we organized and had members from the whole district, and we would meet once a month, and we had committees. And when there was a rezoning case or a planning, a situation where you're putting a master plan together, our citizens, along with the park authority member and the EDA member, and as well as the planning commission member and me, and we would sit down with everybody and work everything out. So I think that helped a great deal. I don't know why people don't do that today. Everybody has to know what's going on, especially if you want to have someone vote for you the next election, and they need to know what's going on. And so I think that's probably one of the answers.
Yeah.
Well, I developed it along with some of the citizens there. I mean, it wasn't just me. We had some very good, active citizen, volunteers and people that really wanted to. We've been there a long time. We always got newcomers. The newcomers didn't want any development after they got there. And some of the old timers in Lee District would say, "Hey, wait a minute, if you wouldn't have that sidewalk in front of your house or the park down the road if you just don't do anything." Right. So if we have a zoning case up here and some things that we might want to have the developer to do, then let's talk to them and see if we can't work it out, as long as it's within the plan. So I think that I have to give a lot of credit to a lot of the citizens that I worked with. Well, that was the way we did things in Lee District, in particular. And I used to say to my board members fellow board members from other districts, why don't you do this? I mean, who wants to sit there, on a Monday or a Tuesday night until midnight with 50 people coming up there, raising all kinds of hell about everything. And if you work this stuff out ahead of time, everybody's happy. If you can't, then we have a problem. But you give it a try. But some of them did, as you said, but some of them didn't. Again, I was on the Metro board, and we were developing the Blue Line out by Van Dorn. The first thing was that we were not going to go out to Van Dorn because it was expensive, and we convinced the Metro board that they needed a test track for some of the new vehicles, and we built the test track out to Van Dorn Station. That's how we got it halfway out to Van Dorn. And the planners had planned the Franconia station at the intersection of Franconia Road and the RFMP then or now CSX Railway. And right there was a major subdivision of relative new homes on one side. On the other side was industrial. And then the other side was Springfield Forest, which was a subdivision of about 25 years old with a lot of people. And then Springfield Mall was up at the beginning, it was there. And so, but the planners wanted to had planned it there. And everybody in the district began to look at this and says, but this is really not the place. And I remember being at the hardware store one Saturday, and I was waiting on a customer. I always said that I was the only elected official in the country that could catch hell over a pound of nails in the store, which is true. And some folks came in that lived in the subdivision right next to the railroad and just gave me the hardest time you have ever seen. And I was embarrassed because I'm in the middle of business and it's a Saturday, and and I said, this is really not the place to do this. If can we get together and talk about this? And we did, and they said, this is a terrible place for a station. I mean, it's residential. What are you going to, you got parking lot, parking structure. And so they said, why don't you take a look at across from Springfield Mall, across from Springfield Forest, and locate there. There's plenty of land there. And we could, do some different things. And I said, well, so we went back, and the Metro planners and Fairfax County planners got together, and we looked at it. And Springfield Forest folks were a little concerned about it, but we developed a 500-foot buffer between Springfield Forest and the Parkway. The Fairfax County Parkway went right through there, and they said they felt comfortable by doing that. The mall was right there. The industrial was on the other side, and their office complex. And so that's how we relocated this Franconia Springfield. Then when we got ready to build everything, we decided that, because we had, right next to 95, we had the Parkway, we had Franconia Road, had Beulah Street, we could put a transit center there for buses, parking, garage, and we would have a total integrated transit center. And that's how that started. All because somebody, listened. We listened. Because, these folks were irate. I thought they were going to skewer me when at that point. But as an elected official, you've got to listen to people like that. You've got to say, wait a minute, maybe that's a good idea. And just because the planners say this is where they want to put it is not quite, you don't have to take that as gospel. And that's the way that started.